Greetings everyone, and welcome to our webinar on how we can create templates in Proclaim. We're going to be covering a little bit of ground here at the start within the program. We're going to chat about how you can create templates. You can also find a way to easily reuse items and how we can go about naming items so that we can come back to them later. We're also going to chat a bit about creating our own kind of template for a type of slide or content item, and also styles for writing and text within those items. And then again, how we'll be able to easily call those up later. So the purpose of today's discussion is to look at how we're currently using Proclaim and how we can be using it to save us more time in the week and make things easier on our teams and our staff. My name is Wyatt Shedd-Stewart. I'm glad to have you here today. As people filter in, what I'd love to ask you to do is just you can ask questions here on the upper right-hand corner of the program. And then as we come to the end of this section where we're explaining how to do things within the program, we'll just do an open Q&A where anyone's welcome to follow along. In the event that we don't have a ton of questions today, that'll be fine. We'll just go ahead and wrap this up, and this video will be available on our YouTube channel later for anyone who has questions about how we can do templates again in the future. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the program, and let's get started. So here we are within the Proclaim program. A couple things that we're all used to seeing. We got the Faith Life panel here on the right-hand side. That's where we're able to work with our teams, ask questions, reply to comments, and otherwise engage as we're collaborating throughout the week. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and collapse that so we have a little bit more space here on the screen. And right now, we're just looking at a Proclaim presentation. Now, what I did today is I just picked a new presentation. I chose one of the fall presentations, and then I went about updating and naming a few things in it. So one of the things that you'll notice I did is I named it a sermon template. And I did that both for today's discussion, but also so I'll be able to easily find this later, and we'll go into why that's important in just a minute. You'll see that I also have gone through and on specific items such as welcome, rather than just naming it welcome, I've also added the word welcome template to this. We'll get to why this is important in a minute. But the kind of first takeaway here is that I'm being careful in how I name things. I'm naming the presentation template, and I'm also naming specific items as templates. Now the reason I'm doing this is because one of the great things that Proclaim offers is the ability to not have to do the same thing twice. With Proclaim, you can easily reuse whole presentations, you can reuse specific items, and we give you lots of tools so that if you're going to be doing announcements, and 4 of the announcements from last Sunday are the same as the announcements you're going to be doing this Sunday, it should be easy to recall those items and bring them into the presentation you're working in. We also know that lots and lots of churches would like to have the ability to be using kind of a core template that they keep pretty consistent week to week. And so what I want to show you today is not where you'll find pre-built templates, but where you can tailor your own template as well as the content within that presentation template so that you can reuse that and easily build off that mold every week. So again, what I did is I just opened up a fall sample presentation, and then I started coming in here and I started narrowing out and editing down some information. So I made sure to have specific examples of different types of things, like the announcement template, a welcome template, explanation of how signals work for my church group, maybe explanation of where they can find my Faith Life group, where I can just enter that URL, or where they can find us on Facebook. So I entered all that, some Bible art, and then same thing. Please silence your cell phone template, the sermon outline template, sermon title. These are all elements that can more or less be transferred and reused every week. So for example, every week I'll have a welcome slide. Every week I'll likely have some sort of Bible art that I'll want to use to edify the church. Every week I'll be able to give people information before the service during the pre-service loop about our social channels. And every week I'll probably have some announcements that I want to show in the order of service beforehand. Now, similarly, every week I'm going to want to probably have a countdown and let everyone know to please silence their cell phone. I'm going to have songs. I'm going to have a sermon title. I'm going to have sermon slides. And I'll likely be presenting my Bible text either in a Bible item or with the on-screen Bible. We're also going to take tithe and offering and other elements that are going to come through. Now, you'll notice that there's other content that I've already got showing up above. And so for the sake of this, I might not actually want all of that content here in my template. I might want my template to be pretty pared down. So just making sure I have all the things that I'm going to be using every single week. Once I've got the template with more or less the thinned down version, I just save it as a sermon template, and now I'll actually be able to find this anytime. So once I've created the bare bones template that I want to use, let me just go into the open menu and let me just pick one of the previous templates that I've gone with before. So let's see, what about just this week that we had done? So let's say that I open the program and this is the sermon I was most recently in, but I want to start a new sermon for this coming week. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll click on open. I'm just going to search for sermon templates. Sure enough, I've got the one that we made right here and available. And now I'm going to right click. So I don't want to open that template and reuse it. Instead, I want to right click on that and I want to duplicate it. When I duplicate it, you'll notice that my original template is still very much maintained and available for use again, but my new one that I've just duplicated and created is now selectable. And when I open that up, I can just come in here and I can rename this to this coming Sunday's service time. And just like that, I've taken a template and I'm now using it in my presentation. So it was a pretty simple thing for me to begin by making a new template and then renaming, duplicating and renaming that template to the upcoming week so that I'm able to start working. Now, a couple things that you notice once I've created a template and I've saved it, I've searched for it, and I've opened it, we see that we still have all of these welcome template information. So now that I know this slide, I don't need to call it the welcome template anymore. I can just say welcome slide. And it may be that even though the template had this welcome image because it was harvest themed, that I want to find a new theme. So just like any other item in Proclaim, I can choose background, I can browse media, and within the media, I'll just search for welcome. Really quickly, I'll locate another welcome slide, maybe find something that still feels like it's within the season. And once I've found what I'm looking for, I'll just apply that to the current item. Notice that my text that says example church, that stays. If that was my church name, that would be switching in right away. But really easily, we just brought in a new welcome slide, which is going to be here for the church. So again, not only do I have the advantage of reusing the entire template, but I can really easily start converting over specific items within that template to a new week. If I like the Bible art from last week, I don't need to change it. Or if I desire, I can go in and find some new Bible art, similarly by just going through the Add Item menu. Same thing with a lot of the items in here. Between the sermon on the content, I can come in, I can just start pasting in the actual content I want for my sermon slides, and I can switch the background over to our new sermon theme and background. Or a lot of times you're doing a sermon series, the artwork might not be changing week to week because it's all part of an ongoing series. The point is that there's a lot of options here, and this is really highly adaptable. Let's chat, though, about how we can be reusing items. So let's say, for example, we have this announcement template. And while this says Fall Church Festival, this could say anything, and we might want to reuse this, but instead of a different background. Well, I can duplicate the announcement, have a second announcement, and then really quickly just go in, pull out some of the specific things that were overcrowding my search so that I'm now looking at just my announcement options. And then I see, okay, we've got the Christmas choir coming up, so this one fits that. I'm going to apply that to the current item. So now I'm building out multiple announcements. I'm going to rename them so they're easily able to find. And as I do that, I can keep just switching out and making the changes within the actual item. And it's that easy for me to quickly spin out new announcements. Now, I can do something really similar just by going to Add Item and choosing Announcement. It will bring in a blank one with whatever I recently used as my background. But if I've already made customized bits, or if I already have contact information in an existing item, and I want to reuse that contact information, then it's helpful to just go ahead and duplicate it here. Similarly, I can choose Add Item, and I can go to Reuse Items, where I can search for announcements, find the announcement template that I'm using that has my contact information pre-built in, and then select that from right within this to add it in. So in the same way that we can reuse and find updated information for our content for our entire sermons, we can also do that for specific items. Now that we've chatted about how we're able to look at and prepare sermons and items to be reused and made into templates. Let's chat a bit about styles and actually the content within an item. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that, but really quick, I want to go ahead and just say a welcome to everyone who's joined us so far. Right now, we're just going through some of the basics of the program. My name is Wyatt, for anyone that I haven't been able to meet yet. And we're just chatting through how we can create templates within Proclaim. For anyone who's just arriving, you can ask questions. There's a Q&A feature that's enabled there on your screen. And as you ask questions, as soon as I wrap up here, I'll be able to answer those questions for you. So feel free to start writing questions now. I'll finish up this part of the demonstration, and we'll get to all those questions that you might have. Now, we've already talked so far about how you can create a template for an overarching presentation. And once you've done that, naming it so that you can find it easily later, either in your recent presentations or by searching for the title. And we've talked about how you can specifically use templates from items within a presentation so that you can find those later by searching for them so that you're able to find the ones with pre-built-in contact information, etc. Or by just making new ones, or even by duplicating ones within the presentation. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and chat about how we are able to set up some customized, reusable templates for items within Proclaim. So here we have a content item. This is a pretty basic way that you can just put in a lot of text on a content item. You can make changes. But depending on the needs of the church, you might have something else that you're looking for. And so let's go ahead and click Add Item, choose Content, and let's chat a little bit about basics of content items. So one thing you'll notice is it brings in whatever the last background is. In a previous presentation, we were talking about me when I was a little kid working in sermons. So that's the background. But for this context, we probably don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and browse media. We're going to look at some of the pro media, which is that content that we create here. And I'm going to find a pretty simple background that I just want to use for our conversation today. We've got some great Advent media coming up. And so let's see. We've got that Advent option, but actually Thanksgiving is even closer around the corner. So I'm going to find something in here that I like that I can reuse. So here's an example of a content item in Proclaim. This is a content item which is used for not writing in all your sermon notes, but specifically giving something a header and a subheader. But it may be that I really like this background and I'd like to have more general content around this image. So what I can actually do is you'll see that I have these X's right here. And I can just cut out the current header and subheader that we have on this item. And you'll notice that I'm just deleting those here. And now we have a blank content item. And for a lot of you might be asking, well, a blank item isn't exactly what we're looking for, and you're right. We want to add more to it. So now that we have the background we want, I'm going to go ahead and click here on the text field, and I'm going to look for the custom text box option. Once I bring in that custom text box, I'm going to drag that to fit the dimensions of the screen that I want to write in while leaving this image here on the side intact. So one thing I'll notice is that right now my example text is black and I'd rather have a white background. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch over my text to white text. I also find that in this setup, I probably want to have an orientation of my text in the upper left so I can fit more in. I realize that for this purpose, rather than a custom text box, I may even want a main content box just so that I have a little bit more editing space. So what I'm going to do is bring in a main content box, and then I'm just going to resize that guy. And so here we have the example text for our new item. We've got, we'll just do this in bullet points. Point 1, point 2, and point 3. And we're making sure again that we have that oriented in this slide in the way we like. We also might want to do a few other things while we're going through the process of editing. Proclaim uses smart media to edit slides for you, but sometimes you do want to take your own time to go ahead and customize content in an item to create a new template that you want to use later. So I'm going to go ahead and find a type of font that I'd like to use, and I think in this case we're going to go ahead and go with the Comica hand option. So that updates the text. I kind of like the way that interacts with the table. And I can even go in here and look at styles that I currently have. I can make sure that any effects that I'm looking for, I'm able to set up. So maybe I want to set up just a couple other details for this text using the various effects. And that's a little bit brighter than I want, so I'm going to take that one away, see if maybe one of these other ones comes through a little bit better, and I like how that looks. So now that I've done that, I can switch over, make any other changes that I want within my text. And once that's done, I'm going to save this style that I've just created. So for this sake, I can now go ahead and just enter in the current style that I'm working in. And I can name this, let's say, my Thanksgiving style. Maybe this is what I'm going to use for a lot of my Thanksgiving media as I create a presentation for this next coming week. So now I've created a template not just for my slide, but also a template for the type of style for text I want to use again on another slide. And I'm going to go ahead and name this slide Thanksgiving content. And then throw a template on there. The reason I want to throw a template on there is now when I go to add item and reuse items, if I type in template, all the templates that I'm looking for that I want to find later are going to be easy for me to call up, including this one I've just made. So next week, if I want to make a new Thanksgiving content template, I can just bring it in. And for any existing slide, I can go to the styles option and I can switch the style over. And just like that, I'm making those switches for me. Now it may be that when I make that change, I want to go back, and so I can just use the undo option, which is right here, just to the right of the foreground image insertion, to go ahead and set that up. And as I make these changes, I'm going to be able to now reuse content within an item. I've figured out how I can reuse and have a template for stylistic changes in my writing, also for backgrounds. There's just a ton of ways I can reuse content in Proclaim so that when myself or my team are making content, we can easily reuse and reallocate the things we've already done in the past to save us time moving forward. So those are just quite a few ways that Proclaim is looking to do that for us. We also can switch out the background on this to something else. And you'll notice that some of the options we've added in recently include suggested backgrounds, so that if you're using a background that's already in your presentation, you can start easily syncing up and making the backgrounds that reflect the same style throughout your presentation. So with just a little bit of pre-work, we're able to reuse these week after week or season after season for the type of things that we're working on. So we've just gone through a lot of the basics of how you can do templates within Proclaim. We've gone over the main service, also specific items, also having the text or writing and content within the items, and even building some of our own items that we can reuse those styles later. Now is a great time for us to begin answering questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, I'd love to take those for you. You can answer those there in that Q&A box. And then if there aren't any questions, then great. We'll go ahead and put this up. This will be available on our YouTube page for you to watch later and share with your audience and with your team. But if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer those for you. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight just a couple things within the program and see if we don't have some questions. And if not, then we'll just be wrapping up here in a few minutes. So thanks so much for being here, and I look forward to answering your questions. So back within the program, now that we've gone over a lot of this information, let's go ahead and apply this by creating a brand new presentation. So this is a blank presentation for this upcoming week, and we're going to look at how we can start bringing in some content for us to use. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go add item. I'm going to search for the templates. I know I'm going to want my sermon template. I want my Thanksgiving content. I'm going to want my announcement. And I'm probably going to want a few different announcements. So once I have it in here, I'll just go ahead and duplicate it. Notice we have shortcut keys for that. So I can just duplicate that a couple times. And then this announcement, we'll go ahead and have this one relate to Thanksgiving. This announcement will have to do with our new discipleship class. And this one will have to do with Sunday school. As I build each of these out, you'll notice that in just a minute here, I've gotten the bare bones of my new service. I can start fleshing out and adding in more details, but the components of being able to easily re-add items and bring in customization is all there. And so as I go through that work, I'm able to then begin opening up and saving it. And again, this was all from a blank presentation. I can also just open up that template that I've already created, duplicate it, and then start using that existing template to make switches. If I ever make a template I don't want or a slide I don't want, I can just delete it out of my presentation order history so that I'm easily able to avoid clutter and find what I'm looking for next time. All right, so that's a lot of the basics of how we apply this. It looks like there aren't a ton of questions about that today, so I hope this was really informative for you. If you do have any questions after this and you want to reach us, you can find us by contacting us at hello, H-E-L-L-O, at proclaimonline.com. Again, that's hello, H-E-L-L-O, at proclaimonline.com. So I'd love your feedback on today. What was helpful? What would you like to know more about in the future? I'd also like to go ahead and hear about how these templates are going to help you out. And so any feedback you can provide, we welcome that. We really appreciate you being here and having the chance to hear from you. So feel free to give us a ring or to go ahead and send us a message at hello@proclaimonline.com. Thanks for attending today. I hope you all have a great week using templates in Proclaim, and God bless.